So you're in Cape Canaveral, and you've got an associate's degree from Rochester Institute of Technology, but you go back to RIT, don't you?
Oh yeah, after a year, I made enough money that I could afford to go to school for the last 2 years, and so that's what I did. Re-enrolled to get my bachelor's degree for the final 2 years. Again, still working co-op at General Electric. But when I graduated from there, I was offered positions at General Electric, but General Electric in those days insisted that all new engineering graduates go to what they call their was a training program for 2 years, and they may assign you any place. So I didn't think I was ready for that, and I signed up. I signed on with the local company in Rochester, Stromberg-Carlson, which was at the time a division of General Dynamics. Stromberg-Carlson was an interesting place. I mean, they were still doing consumer electronics, making audio amplifiers, car radios. They made a lot of car radios for various companies. And my uncle, one of my mother's older brothers, was actually the supervisor of the car radio department. He'd worked for him for years. But anyway, I was working on the military. I got hired in the military side, where they were staging and building a first of 2 of these huge listening facilities for Cold War espionage. Basically, the U.S. wanted to spy on Russia to determine what they were doing. So the location of these 2 places was in Turkey, right on the Black Sea, marvelous village by the name of Samsung. And then another was a place called Hof, Germany, which was right on the East German border. Right on the border. So these were 2, that's where these things ultimately ended up. But I hung around there for about 6 months. That's all. I got to know the system incredibly well. And again, it was one of these military projects that had a lot of people pushing paper, a lot of people, generating red tape. And I just got in there and figured out what these things did. Had a lot of opportunities to work with the engineers that had designed this, which were from other companies, almost all of them on the West Coast. And that's where I got to meet a lot of the engineers from a company called Mel Labs, which is in Palo Alto at the time. My boss there, marvelous guy by the name of Jim Colton, called me in one day and said, he said, we need you to go out there to do some things. He said, but while you're there, meaning to the West Coast, but while you're there, I want you to interview for some jobs. And he said, I want you to come back and resign and go there. He said, that's where things are being done. So I did, and he had arranged interviews for me at Mel Labs along with Watkins Johnson, because they were buying backward oscillators and TWTs and all that kind of stuff from Watkins Johnson at the time. Anyway, I was hired by the people at Mel Labs. So beginning in 1961, that's where I moved, was late 1960, early 1961. I moved to Palo Alto, went to work for Mel Labs. And I was there for probably 2.5 to 3 years. Did a lot of things.